Robert Palmer was not a typical rock star. While others wore leather and ripped jeans, he stood out cool, elegant, and versatile, bringing sophistication to rock, soul, reggae, and new wave. A musician and singer who reinvented himself with a song about love gone numb. That's the story of Robert Palmer's Johnny and Mary. And in my studio, I will be recreating this track using the LM1, the Juno 60, and some VSTs on Logic Pro. Alan Robert Palmer was born in Batley, Yorkshire in 1949. As a baby, his family moved to Malta, where he tuned into American Forces Network radio and discovered the soulful voice of Otis Redding, his lifelong influence. Back in England, he grew up in Scarborough, where his mother ran a guest house and his father worked for the RAF. At 15, Palmer was already fronting local band the Mandrakes, before moving on to London with the Alan Bown set and later forming Vinegar Joe with Elkie Brooks. After Vinegar Joe split in 1974, Island Records signed Palmer as a solo artist. He blended funk, soul, and rock across albums like Sneaky Sally Through the Alley and Double Fun. By the late 70s, he was experimenting with reggae and Caribbean groups, scoring hits like Every Kind of People and A Bad Case of Loving You. In 1980 came Clues, a bold turn toward new wave. Its highlight, Johnny and Mary, was written in Oso, Bahamas, using a primitive spider sequencer plugged into a Wasp synthesizer. He later joked, "The technology was so primitive that you spent most of the time behind a machine with a screwdriver." The song tells the story of a couple stuck in habits. Johnny lost in illusions, Mary resigned to follow. Palmer explained, "These are people who have fallen into life like a habit. There's no struggle or romance in what they do." Inspired by British expatriates in the Bahamas, the track became universal. The video, directed by Jean-Pierre Berckmans, showed Palmer as a writer, while Johnny and Mary appeared as mimes, literally going through the motions. It wasn't played on early MTV, but the song gained cult status and became the soundtrack for Renault ads across Europe for nearly 2 decades. By 1984, Palmer surprised fans by joining the power station with Duran's John and Andy Taylor and Chic drummer Tony Thompson. Their mix of funk and rock gave us hits like Some Like It Hot, but Palmer soon stepped away to focus on his own work. His solo career peaked with Riptide in 1986, featuring Addicted to Love, its video with blank-faced models becoming an MTV icon. Then came Simply Irresistible, confirming him as a master of reinvention. Palmer was a heavy smoker and loved whiskey. Friends recall he could go through 60 cigarettes a day, a habit that took a toll on his health. Robert Palmer died suddenly at age 54 on September 26 of 2003, collapsing from a heart attack in his room in a hotel in Paris. He was in the city with his partner Mary Ambrose on a 2-day break after recording a television retrospective for Yorkshire Television. The program was recorded just 2 days before his death, and the news shocked fans and colleagues worldwide.
I'm very excited to get into this track and start working on this song. I am gonna be using some of the synths that I really like a lot lately, like the Matrix XR, the Oberheim synth that I unboxed actually on my latest video, on the Billy Idol one, if you want to check out. And I'm gonna be using the Linndrum. Something about this track actually opened a lot of things when I was a kid, and this is because it reminded me a lot of the pop artists of the era back in Mexico. If you don't know much about pop music from Mexico, don't worry. It was considered very cheesy. There was singers like Dulce was one lady that sang some music back in the time, Daniela Romo, also a group of kids called Timbiriche that I grew up listening to that, and most of my generation. And I remember, obviously, I like all of this, but it was mostly music for my mom or my aunts. I never considered those music cool until later that I started listening to it, and I related some of the songs with other artists. Like in this case, actually, there's this band Timbiriche that I just mentioned that sounds very similar to that. And the reason is because most of the producers travel a lot to other countries finding songs that were not accessible in Mexico. Because at the time in the 80s, it's not like today you go on the internet and you can find any song. There was not a lot of access of music. So most of those melodies from like this song, it reminds me of that. So if you want to look or listen to this music, I'm gonna leave the links in the description of this video so you can check it out and dig in by yourself. But there was a lot of influence from Italy, from France, like Italo disco music and things like that, like Ricci Poveri and like many others. So if you listen to that music without listening to the lyrics, you're gonna find out like it sounds very Italo disco. Miguel Bosé from Spain is another person that produced a lot in Mexico as well. So you're gonna listen to all of that. So with that said, I'm gonna start with this track, and this was actually one of your recommendations. So thank you so much for throwing your music, the music that you want me to recreate. I hope you like this, and let's begin. Okay, the drum actually is very simple for this song, and I'm gonna be using the Linndrum to program the drums of this track. It's pretty much that, and then we have like a hi-hat. And then we have a crash. Okay, so now we're gonna record the bass, and what I did is just, again, cut in the envelope the resonance, the sustain as well. So it's very cut, and I added an arpeggio. Then we have this sound that is, I think I consider a very 80s sound, that is this kind of bells, but with some very nice reverb. Then we have this very simple but very nice arrangement. Okay, and then we have this almost like a path. Okay, and then we have another part of the marimba that is that it goes in by the end of the song or the middle of the song. And I think this is a beautiful part. It's very nostalgic. The whole song is super nostalgic. And Bryan Ferry actually did an amazing rendition to this song. I have all the elements to put together, and now let's listen to the final result. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. I am really excited that I hit 10,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for your support and your comments. You're an amazing community. You're always like sending a lot of amazing comments and recommendations and your experiences. I like to know and to hear where is the first time that you listen to this track. It fascinates me to listen to your personal stories, or if it's the first time that you listen to this song, and what are your thoughts about it? And also, what's the next song that you would like me to tackle next? Thank you so much again, and remember I have my Patreon. You're gonna be able to download the stems of this song on my Patreon, so you can create your own version or just have the samples from these amazing vintage instruments like the Matrix 6R, the Linndrum, the Juno 60. Thank you so much again, and see you in another nostalgic exploration.